because although I have a clip, inevitably I'd be moving it a lot. So I wanted Ellie to be able to concentrate on my words. It's good to be together. A rabbi friend of mine says that Yom Kippur is her favorite holiday. Well, she's a rabbi. But she said when someone asked her that it means we made it through the year, we're blessed to be together, we're enjoying more music than usual, we're a larger community present, and we really do have so much to be grateful for. But that's not where I'm starting. It's almost 2 years since October 7th, 2023. That fateful day changed everything for Israelis, but in fact for Jews everywhere in the whole world. A new normal arose immediately from the ashes of that shocking and unimaginable day when the level of dismay, damage, destruction, murder, and mayhem exceeded anything we ever could have imagined. Our lives in the United States have changed for the worse. The same is true, my Canadian friends and family report, and when we were in Europe this summer, we saw the same thing was present there, and clearly it is much worse for Israelis on so many significant levels. It may very well turn out that the lives of Jews anywhere will never be the same, especially in Israel. On that day, our sense of being safe and secure in the world evaporated when the horrendous news greeted us when we awoke. Our view of the future changed immediately. We no longer felt like we were full members of the American dream. That took some time, but not much. It was a nightmare. In this country, so many things that were taboo were no longer taboo. This summer in Europe, for example, I saw a spray-painted sign that we've seen here or heard here, Free Palestine, within a half a block, as I was telling Art, where there was a marker in the ground commemorating that a family that had died in the Holocaust had lived there. The juxtaposition was chilling. Closer to home, anti-Semitism flourished in a form of hatred for us that no Jews alive had experienced unless they heard from parents or survivors. And please note that this anti-Semitism arose to these extreme heights before Israel went into Gaza. On the 8th of October, it began. So even before the war in Gaza, which started out as being the Israelis trying to acknowledge to the world that they couldn't sit idly by, which is hardly a biblical thing to do, the hate emanated from so many corners of our society before Israel did a thing. Before the blood of the murdered Israelis, especially the Israeli women, had dried, the world could care less. All this occurred for us Americans when we were already traumatized, because 5 years before, there was a killing on an average Shabbat in October of 2018, when a perpetrator entered the synagogue called the Tree of Life, where 3 synagogues met, killed 11 people that were just sitting the way we are sitting, and wounded 6. It was the largest loss of life in a Jewish community in American history. And as you've heard me say, one of my classmates in rabbinical school, he's fine. Rabbi Jonathan Perlman is the rabbi of one of those synagogues, but he had to hide in a closet as he worried about what would happen to him and his congregants. Some of his congregants died. It so happened I was outside that synagogue the next day, because my rabbi brother was celebrating 25 years in the rabbinate across the state, so I drove across the state the next day, and it broke my heart to see 11 Stars of David made out of wood with their names spray painted on in a nice way. All they had done was gone to synagogue. The 2018 mass shooting took place at that synagogue soon after Columbia University and the Anti-Defamation League independently reported a spike in anti-Semitic activities online, especially in very popular social networking platforms like Instagram and Twitter, now X. In addition, other anti-Semitic acts have been committed elsewhere, even here in the greater Los Angeles area. There were 2 different attacks in the beautiful Jewish neighborhood of Pico Robertson, when during the week, on 2 separate occasions, people just leaving mourning Minyan were shot. They survived, but it shook people up. It shook me up, caused a lot of anxiety. All we do is live. And 2 people lay in wait and shot men leaving synagogue. Sui American Jews had already been reeling for 5 years before October 27, 23. The October 7th attack on the kibbutzim in what's called the Gaza envelope, and in the city of Sderot, and at the site of the Nova Music Festival, which we visited this past December when, representing all of us, we went to bear witness, shook us to the core. In part, it was due to the viciousness of the violence and the sheer number of people killed. In total, almost 1,200 people, 1,195 innocent people, were killed in the attacks. 736 Israeli civilians, including 38 children, 79 foreign nationals, 379 members of the security forces. While attending the Nova Music Festival, 364 civilians were killed and many, many more were wounded. And I don't only mean physically. Many of those who survived have died by suicide because what they endured was just too much. During the blistering and merciless attacks carried out by 3,000 Hamas terrorists, 248 people were kidnapped from Israel and taken to Gaza. Additionally, what was so shocking for Israelis and for us who love Israel was that Israel's modern army and security establishment blew it. They could not defend their people. Some word had been leaking out that this was possible. When we were there in December, I forget the name of the kibbutz, but we were at the kibbutz where there were women who were in the army who were the lookouts. They'd reported it, and they were ignored. And many of them were killed, and if not killed, were taken advantage of, and many of those taken to Gaza, and only some came back. This fraught moment in American Jewish history traumatized us, and in the same way that when a loved one dies, and we need the comfort of a Shiva house for our people to come and visit us, all of us felt the need to be comforted. But who is going to comfort us when all of us are mourning? Many Jews then felt alone, and for many, I've heard, it still feels like October 8th. 1 month after the barbaric attacks, excuse me, which claimed, as I've said before, many innocent people, including my cousin Jackie Rivers Vital, claimed her daughter Adi Vital Kaploon, age 33. She'd been killed in front of her 2 incredibly young children who somehow survived. They were age 4 and 6 months. Adi was humble, quiet, and intelligent. She grew up in she grew up in Jerusalem to Canadians and Israelis, mixed marriage, and raised her family with her beloved husband Anani on Kibbutz Cholit, which had been overrun with terrorists. It was on the Gaza border. It is only because her father, like any of us who have children in college, let's say, her father Yaron went to visit her, and it's only because he stayed in guest housing that the terrorists who had a map of the kibbutz, which was given to them by people that formerly had been given the benefit of the doubt and allowed to work on the kibbutz, so that when they found the note, the map, there were big X's over where Yaron had been because it was guest housing. No one was expected to be there. And Adi had texted her father and said, "Do not leave the room. Do you think any of us that are parents could imagine sitting there when your daughter is under attack and you have been in the army? You are a volunteer with the police. She quickly called her husband, Anani, and said, Anani, where is the gun that we have here? And can you remind me how to use it? Because I have been out of the army for 10 years. He was out with some friends, as Israelis do on the holiday of Shmini Atzer at Simchat Torah if they're not religious. And she said, do not come back, just tell me how to use the gun. Very bright woman. She remembered quickly, and she shot the terrorists who burst in. And when his comrades came in and saw him dead, they burst into the safe room and they killed her. And other things that I don't want to share. I did see her surviving husband, neighbor Avital, and the 2 children when I was there 2 months later. The wound in the little boy's son, the older of the 2, had healed, and they seemed to be coping. But from what I've read, it's kind of like grief. It's not linear. It's up and down. They can never go back to the kibbutz. Anani was a farmer, and money's been raised by his in-laws so that he can buy a piece of land. So it is not the same. A month after the attack on November 23, many of you know that me and 290,000 of my closest friends were in Washington in the National Mall for the March on Washington. We were joined by 250,000 that joined online. It was seen as the largest pro-Israel gathering in U.S. history. The stated goals of the rallies, detailed on a sign that I brought back that's on my door, were to fight for the hostages, fight for Israel's right to exist, and to combat anti-Semitism. When I was there, it was a great feeling. I felt the power of connection. Not only did I feel transported back in time to the late 80s, when with many people from California and all over the country, we'd flown to Washington to march in the same place on behalf of what were then Soviet Jews or Russian Jews. We were connected that day as we had been whatever number of years before, not only with fellow Jews, and it was a little bit of a reunion. It was fun to see friends I hadn't seen in whatever amount of time, but we felt enveloped by the American people. It was not to last. Because who'd have thought that that day when we were screaming for the hostages to be released, that 726 days later, there would be at least bodies, if not a few emaciated hostages still being held. We were very grateful that Speaker of the House Mike Johnson and former Senate Majority, now Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, were there to give support to us. And I know some of you like Matisyahu, and he was there to sing. I didn't prepare these people, and I'm not going to say we should sing, but here are the lyrics that really struck us. We wanted peace, and he sang, sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. When negativity surrounds, I know someday it will all turn around because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There will be no more wars and our children will play. Here, we are proud. Those of us that went to college grew up and went to college. Those of us with kids that went to college or are going to college got to grow up and go to college. In Israel, they need to serve in the army, and some clearly don't come home. Since then, we in America have not always felt so connected and protected by and loved by our American non-Jewish friends. Anti-Semitic acts, as you know, have skyrocketed around the country, especially on college campuses. I used to be proud to be a graduate of Columbia. That was one of the worst places, ground zero, for hate that arose on October 8th. Many Jewish institutions, not only synagogues, now have to have armed guards. We need 2 tonight. The church across the street never needs armed guards. Also in April, the Jewish governor of the state of Pennsylvania finished having a Seder. In the very room where the Seder took place, I see nodding heads, there was a firebomb that went through, and that room was on fire. Let's not forget that in May in the nation's capital, a man shot and killed 2 young staff members of the Israeli embassy in that city in front of a Jewish museum. The suspect in that incident shouted, "Free Palestine," as he was arrested according to charging documents in the case. I have respect for the people who are Palestinian and who want a place to be. This now is not about politics. But when you say free Palestine, for most American Jews, it means, yeah, we don't need Jews in Israel anymore. The following month, like in Long Beach, where people gathered peacefully to demonstrate against Hamas and seek the release of the hostages, this time in Boulder, Colorado, an Egyptian national injured 12 people, and he was charged with a hate crime. There's been so much trauma. It's been nonstop for so long. I'm about to mispronounce a Yiddish phrase. I asked Ellie about it a week ago Friday. It goes something like this: Sie schwar zu sein a Yid. Not too close, schwer. Okay, my Zeta's rolling over in his grave. It is not easy to be a Jew. To my grandparents who left Europe about 100 years ago, it then reflected the significant challenges that minimized their ability to live productively and positively in Poland or Ukraine. It also touched on the myriad of challenges that they faced when moving to a country, whether it was my paternal grandparents trying to fit into the United States, to my maternal ones trying to fit into Canada. Both countries didn't have a lot of use for Jews at various times. But yet both sets were living in America or Canada with the ability to live freely and to vote. Life was looking up. That phrase, "it's not easy to be a Jew," stays relevant today as a reminder of the ongoing struggles and complexities of being Jewish, regardless of place or time. This is not the first time that it has not been easy to be a Jew in this country. So what are we supposed to do? What have we done in the past? Do we just shrug our shoulders and go, wow, it's really rotten here in America? No, we have fought. Because there have been so many blessings for us in this country, and we have given so much to this country. So that's what we have to do now. We can't let other people define who we are. The Maccabees stood up. On every Jewish holiday, I like trying to learn something that can help us with the holiday we're in from another holiday. What did the Maccabees do? They stood up in 167 BCE because the people ruling the country at the time, the Greek Syrians, said no kosher food, no rituals of Shabbat, and no circumcision. And temple worship was no longer the same. They said, a line has been crossed. We can't live like that. So we know there was a happy ending, but many of the Hasmonean family, Judah Maccabee we know, but one of his brothers died. It wasn't simple. But then we had autonomy. But only until the early part of this century, into this millennium. We can no longer allow Jews to be tarnished because how Israel is waging war. We may agree with how the war is going, or we may disagree, but it has changed how Jews around the world are viewed. So that may still be the case, but we are proud to be Jewish. We are proud of what we stand for. We cannot walk around with our noses facing down. We are not cowardly. We are proud of who we are and what we stand for. It's been 2 years. So as Pastor Jack and I, when we offer support to people, or Katie, who's a therapist, we talk about there being an end to the grief. At some point, the grief is just going to sit inside you. And you have to be able to go on living even if your heart is broken. So we have to move forward together. I hope that what developed over the past few days with President Trump and Prime Minister Netanyahu comes to fruition. It came too late in my writing process to redo my whole talk. Unlike 30 years ago, I told someone in the lobby, when President Clinton brought together Prime Minister Rabin and Mr. Arafat, and there was real peace. So let's hope this is the dawning of a new time. There is real destruction in Gaza, and a huge number of Israeli soldiers have died, and Palestinian people. We just have to admit there's pain on both sides. I want to leave you with a thought. Let's recommit ourselves to living big, bold, beautiful Jewish lives. As I've said before, whatever it is you do that defines your life as a Jew, add something to it. If you do X, add Y. If you haven't studied in a while, study. If you study Jewish meditation, then let's study Jewish literature together. If you love Israeli dance, then study medieval philosophy. If you like Kabbalah, David Youngman, then let's study Musar together. If you're already studying Musar with me, then work with me to try to figure out Kabbalah and we can study together. There is so much that goes into being our people. And let's build bridges with other people. I started by introducing Pastor Jack and the interfaith service we're going to have. We are working so hard, as all of you have in various ways, to be part of the Jewish community and being part of the larger community. Now is not the time to shrink and wither away. The stakes are high, and this country's been very good to us. It's a down time, but we who have children know that they look to us. Some of our children are out of college and ready to do good in the world, as many of us whose kids are already out of college are doing, or who grown-ups, like the Shears kids, who have their children in the religious school. We can't just sit around. What are the little kids going to look to us for? I'm not very good at Israeli dancing, but we had fun the last day of Hebrew school when Robert Friedman Finch was here leading the Israeli dancing. Who knew he knew Israeli dancing? Maybe some of you know it besides Elisa and Marcy. I think we should have, I know this is really radical of me to say, we should have Israeli dancing perhaps on a Friday night. Wow. Oh, yes. That would be radical, Rabbi. But it would be fun. But we'll take it to a vote of the religious committee, then the board. Because it would be so much fun. I'll still stink at Israeli dancing. Oh, I'll be having fun. So let me close, not with what I wrote, but what Gita and I are going to do this Friday. We're going to have a healing service. He's bringing extra healing music. I'm bringing extra, no sermon. I'll be bringing beautiful healing poems. Because our souls still need the healing, and we need the strength to move positively forward. So let's